I feel as if I've been holding on to something that was so precious, and I was able to convey it and pass it on, confer it, which actually was a huge relief to me. So I know that it will empower the people that it reaches. And what always happens is, once I pass something along, the next steps come to me. They're just given. But until you put the thing you're carrying down, you can't pick the next thing up. So it's it was wonderful, and it was wonderful especially because it was so well received. And people seem to really get it, and it's funny because it was the concern was is is what I take so dearly and believe in so dearly, is it going to matter to others? And it seems like it was on the mark that it does, and my hunches were correct. Basically, what it all comes down to is moving out of very limited consciousness to consciousness that hasn't been oppressed by the world's ways of doing things, the world's way of thinking, the ideologies, the standards, the ways of life, the expectations, the assumptions that are put onto us, that we live with our whole lives, and we just accept them, and we live by them, and it's just setting them down and saying, actually, this isn't necessarily true. It's actually not true at all, and it's just been put into us to keep us all in line, so that we'll all be good little students in school. We'll all be good little school children, and we'll do what we're told, because then we can be controllable. And it's taking back our control of ourselves, it's taking back our control of our own minds, as opposed to being mind controlled, which is really, I mean, if anyone believes that they're not mind controlled and they haven't done the work of dislodging their mind control, they're kidding themselves. It's just a matter of eventually coming to the realization, or not, or just allowing yourself to remain mind controlled, because it's too scary to think about what life might look like if you let go of what you were born in, let's say born into, and conditioned and programmed into. So it's a coming to consciousness. It's coming to authentic consciousness, because when we buy into the collective consciousness, the idea of buying into something means that there's a price that's being paid. What's the price? So the price is our authentic mind. The price is our soul. The price is our own clarity. We're having that real estate of our consciousness, of our soul, taken over by these erroneous ideologies and practices and standards that have nothing to do with our freedom and our true humanity. They only work to keep us enslaved, acting like good little school children, and that's not what we're meant to be at all. So, I mean, the question is, how liberated are you really? If you were to confront the reality that you've been programmed, that you've been conditioned, do you have the wherewithal, do you have the desire, the compulsion to release that and to see what life is like without that? And then if the answer is yes, do you have the discipline to go about your life doing the practices that will enable you to release that stuff from yourself? There are many practices that will do that, and they have to be done in concert. This is the thing with most spiritual practices, is they'll just be one thing, and what I'm delivering is a system. And if you're not doing it all, you're not doing it, because it's only by doing all of it that you can truly release this stuff from this literally stuffing from your beautiful mind, from your beautiful kingdom that should never have been stuffed up with all this erroneous nonsense. It's the ticket to freedom, but not everybody yet has the, let's say, the propulsion to get up and out of it.
Yeah.
And the more we see other people doing it, the easier it becomes for everybody. So if you're one of those people that does have the discipline, the motivation, the propulsion, then that's wonderful. Do it, and do it to the full, because you'll be exemplifying it for those who will follow. And ultimately, I do believe everyone's going to be set free. But it's kind of like turning yours. I use this analogy in the course, going from a caterpillar to a butterfly. No one can do it for you. Like birthing, you know, well, to a certain extent, you know, you can have a cesarean section, but the birthing has to happen. You know, it has to, the baby has to come out, the mother has to give birth, there has to be this birthing process. Coming into the world, leaving the world, transforming, metamorphosizing from one dimension to another, from one landscape, one type of being, like a caterpillar, to a butterfly, that can't be done for you. You have to do it yourself. But we can take notice of others who do it and do it successfully and see how it's done. But it does have to be done. We can't walk around with these enslaved minds. We're pure life force energy. We're the intel from the Creator. We're carrying a blueprint that's so sacred. And to shut that down, to oppress it, that's desecrating something that is that deserves to completely express in its truest form. There's nothing darker, more sinister than oppressing such an expression, such a let's say, composite of pure intel like that from source. That's what we are. And we've allowed ourselves to be oppressed and suppressed, mostly completely, you know, unwittingly, because, you know, we didn't know what was happening to us, and we just complied because it's what was expected of us. And if we didn't, we wouldn't make it to the next level. Like, we wouldn't make it from kindergarten to first grade. We wouldn't, you know, be given an opportunity to earn money. And so then how are we going to buy things? How are we going to have anything? So we got the message early on. We need to do what everybody does in order to have what everybody has, so we can be one of everybody. Because if we're not, then what's the alternative? Well, what we see is maybe, you know, the person who somehow, somewhere along the way, failed to put those links together and was extricated from the community, or doesn't have their basic needs met, and that strikes the fear of God in us. So we keep doing that which oppresses us, which goes against our very nature, because we don't want that to be the outcome in our lives. Fear, basically. Fear and the result. And because when we are oppressed, we turn our backs on what's true, which means we're going to collectively turn our backs on, let's say, those who would be authentic, because they're challenging the status quo, they're challenging us. You know, they say that often those who are in insane asylums, you know, are just the ones that figured things out. I mean, I won't say all of them. Some of them are truly insane and gone so mad. But why are they going so mad? Because they're being so badly oppressed. And some of us can experience that oppression and remain functional. It's like functional alcoholics or functional cokeheads. But others, they can't. So it's like there's almost like functionally conditioned people versus people for whom conditioning and programming made them crazy, made them absolutely crazy. And those people are sensitive enough. Their souls, their spirits still recognize something that was so wrong that made them have this cognitive dissonance that drove them into madness. But the only way you're going to figure out what's authentic in you is when you get the stuffing out. That's the thing. We have to de-stuff ourselves. We have no idea who the true person is, the true unique essence is, because we've been so forced to share our space with this stuff, with this garbage, with this space-taking up thing, stuff. it's complete madness. So I realized I have this new term. It's clueless consciousness. Clueless consciousness, like the movie Clueless. Um, so I have a confession to make. Big confession. Having been raised in that LA, Beverly Hills, Hollywood kind of backdrop with all that lifestyle stuff that's reflected in Clueless, I always thought Clueless was kind of normal. I never realized that it was like such complete satire. And I got the jokes, but I still got the lifestyle because I was there. I was there on Rodeo Drive. I was there with those, getting my hair done in those salons with the hairdressers and the whole thing. I mean, it's all like that. It was all like that when I was a kid growing up. So the whole as if, the whole Valley Girl thing that went with it. I mean, I was raised in San Fernando Valley as a legitimate Valley Girl. And even though I was on the Valley side, raised in Encino, I would always go over the other side of the hill to Beverly Hills and Hollywood and spend time there, and West Hollywood shopping, and of course Beverly Hills, and going along Rodeo Drive, and the scenes even from what's it called? What was the movie with Julia Roberts? Pretty Woman, yeah. I mean, when that came out, I was like, oh, that's home. And so my point is that I was in clueless consciousness. It's like being in Pleasantville, It's like you're acting. And so what I'm getting at is that you don't realize that when you're raised in something, when it's your typical, you don't realize it's so off base, it's so wrong, it's such a saturation of nonsense. So it wasn't until coming to consciousness that I was able to look at a film like that, or at the consciousness of that, and think to myself, oh my gosh, they are so far gone, because I was one of them. So if I can go from being completely clueless, okay, to having a degree of consciousness outside of, let's say, the world's matrix, anybody can. Because I was really deep in it. I didn't have a clue that I was clueless. Okay, I suppose that's the definition of clueless, right? but whether you're raised in Beverly Hills, like the Alicia Silverstone character in the movie and her friends, or you're raised on the East Coast and your father's a professor at Harvard, it's really no different, because it's the same kind of insulated viewpoint on life that always has to do with fitting in, being valued by the way your society measures things. I mean, you could be raised in the Middle East, in the Muslim culture. It's all basically, one is still trapped and unable to experience their authenticity and an open, free, clean, clear mind if one is raised in a societal, cultural envelope, let's say. Whether it's a little bit more religiously dictated, or academically, or fashionista, kind of entertainment-related based, or even athletically, adventurous kinds of. It's still an envelope. It's still, here's the lay of the land, and here are the values, and here's how you will fit into these, and here's who you'll be, and this is truth, basically. That's what you're handed as truth. This is truth, and this is how things are. And the fact is that none of those things are the way things actually are. They're not. It's called reality. Even it's kind of a joke, reality TV. Because it's based on that envelope. To go back to Big Brother, I suppose the original reality TV show, it was nothing like authentic consciousness. It was completely inauthentic, fake, staged, outfitted with people who were saturated with mind-controlled stuff. And I mean, it sounds really obvious to say it in hindsight. But if we can appreciate the fact that the degree to which we might see those individuals as being limited in their consciousness, we are in our own way, each of us, limited in our consciousness, and as much of a joke, as long as we buy into that envelope that we are subscribing to. We have to emerge from it, and that's what this is all about. As long as we're in the envelope, we are under intense mind control. As we emerge from it, we begin to come back to our truth, but to let's say the truth of life. And that's why I like the bottle, because the bottle says, in the bottle you're in the world, outside the bottle is life. And people misconstrue that they believe that the two are one and the same, that they're absolutely antithetical to each other. The world is fake, the world is inauthentic, the world is artificial. Life is authentic, life is true, life is real. So the degree to which you're in the inauthentic world is the degree to which you are mind controlled, the degree to which you're not able to express, the degree to which you are oppressed, the degree to which you're going to have all the issues that the world has, which are not good. They're not happy terms. They're terms like suffering and shame and stress and anxiety, and it can go on and on. Whereas in life we have expression, not suppression. In life we have the fluidity and the flow and the encouragement, the support to syntropically develop. Syntropy being the opposite of entropy. Again, people can say negentropy, syntropy, it's the same thing. But moving to higher and higher orders, as opposed to going from order to lesser orders to chaos, which is entropy. So it's as simple as identifying the difference and choosing which one you want to be a part of. So if you're going to be in the bottle, if you're going to be in the world, then you're making a conscious decision to be in the world and of the consciousness of the world. Then you're also you're consciously accepting that outcome, which is never going to be a good outcome. It's always going to be entropic. So let's be clear. If you emerge from that, the degree to which you emerge from that is the degree to which you will be distancing yourself from those outcomes and aligning yourself with the outcomes of life. Well, I think it comes down to this commoditization of self and other, commoditization of living things. If we turn ourselves into an object to look like that which we idolize, to reflect that which we idolize, then we're basing our whole measurement and valuation of self on that external presentation, which totally discards, ignores, denies that which is happening inside of us. Our creativity, our true feelings, our desire to say or sing or speak or make that which is inside of us. So we're focused on the external. And that's what the anti-creator has us do. Because we start to reflect the anti-creator, which has no innate creativity, which can't create anything in and of itself. So it's always reflecting back. It's like a mirror. It's like the black boxes. So number one, we want to, if we want to idolize anything, we need to idolize that which has the quanta of innate creative power, so that we can be like that we can create, which means that we're going to try to emulate something that has power inside, that isn't going and getting it from the outside or trying to be measured and valued by external box ticking, which means there's only one thing that does that, and that's source. That's the source creator. And it's funny because in the Ten Commandments it says, "Thou shalt have no other god other than me." Now, I think there's a lot of manipulation in the Bible, so I'm not sticking to that as some sort of hard and fast. But I think it is interesting that we do need to choose one source. If we don't choose one source, then we're going to choose from all of the images, the graven images, let's say, grave being grave as in dead images, dolls, idol, it's a doll, it's a fake thing. So I think if we can, if we really need to look to something, which I think we do, actually, we do need to look to something because we're so far afield from having any good example or knowing what a good example is, then let's find the highest example. Why not? Why would we choose a lower example? We choose the highest example there is, which to my mind is the creator source, is the great spirit, that which is able to create in perfect proportions with absolute beauty, melding strength and power and beauty and intel and light and love and everything that is good about life. So then we look to that, and then we have to sync up with that. I like to speak about the grape that would try to grow off the vine. It's not possible. So if we want to look to something, and again, it seems like we all do want to look to something, and it makes sense because it's like a baby going, where's my mommy? There's that book I used to read as a little girl. Are you my mother? And the baby animal will go around all the animals like, are you my mother? No. So we are looking for our mother. We're looking for our father. We're looking for that from which we came. But let's not stop looking until we actually find the right one. If we're a turtle, let's not stick with the cow and think that's it's a sentient being. So but it's not an example. It's not going to teach you how to be a turtle. So so we need to find out from which we came and then sync back up with that. And the beauty of that is that when we do, those qualities come rushing through us. And in a way to think about it too is that instead of searching for an idol, we should be looking for qualities. And we won't find any of the qualities of Source Creator in these idols. I'm saying idols just because I'm trying to pronounce it, but the idols. And that tells the whole story right there, because there's a reason that the Creator has power. It doesn't have power without having the qualities that create that power. The benevolence, the strength, the omniscience, the omnipresence. It doesn't come from being lazy and slothful and corrupting itself. It comes from being true. And we need to become, it's like having, it's alignment. It is being true. The idea that if the term sin is to miss the mark, then to be true is to be on the mark. It's to be on the right, be on the target. And the world will create all these distractions all day long. Because the world isn't life. The world is trying to leech your energy. The world is trying to siphon off your power. So it will constantly create distractions to keep you from syncing up and being true and being aligned with Source Creator and the qualities of Source Creator. But that's where, if you just become aware of that and you catch yourself and you see it happening, you can become very adept very quickly at not getting caught up in it. But that's just one way that we get derailed. We can get derailed by our emotions being taken over, by dysfunctional emotions, by not being able to see what's really right in front of us. So other people's actions, fantasies we get caught up in, thinking that something's happening that isn't happening. There's so many things that can happen every day if we're not clear. Our archetypes, our false archetypes, our dysfunctional archetypes, I should say, can get into the game and start running the show for us. And then we're looking at life, or we're looking at our world or our environment or our circumstances through the lens of a false archetype or a dysfunctional archetype. And that's really dangerous because we're giving them the power to choose how to see the circumstances. So if you have a dysfunctional archetype that's, say, call her the dysfunctional princess. She has romantic ideals of how life should be and the things that should happen. So when she sets her sights on someone who is who looks like the archetypal prince, then she's going to go into assumption around that and how things should play out. And because she isn't mature, she's going to make a lot of poor decisions around that and wind up in a situation that's going to be more harmful than beneficial. But at the time, she's going to see things the way she's going to see them. So this is how we can allow the dysfunctional archetype to see through their lens and do harm to our path and our life. If we can catch them out, we can say, oh, I see her slipping in there. Then we can say, all right, caught you. We're going to talk about this later, young lady. I see you. I see your needs. I see why you're here. I see how you were put into me through Disney and rom-coms and, a million and lineage going all the way back. But it is fantasy. It is illusion. I like to call it illusion. I like to break it down. Il-you-seeing. So you seeing ill. You're not seeing rightly. You're seeing ill. You're seeing wrong. So we'll deal with that. But in the meantime, let's not destroy our lives by letting this false archetype, or this dysfunctional archetype, determine our next steps. So it takes a lot of attention for a while, but then it becomes second nature. You get used to being in the front seat of your life, and you, like the big you, the one that's consciousness is clear and can identify these things. It can see. It's having a kind of situational awareness. You can't see everything coming, but you can see most things coming. You can get better and better at seeing everything coming, like a super ninja would. You go through your degrees of martial arts and various belts, and then you become more and more adept, more and more masterful. But let's at least be on the right track. Let's not, we don't have to become masters tomorrow, but the more we can become aware of the way these things can jump in and take over and mess up our path, the more we'll avoid these interferences. I love that you said that. Yes, we are in control. We are in control when we're in control. If fantasies are in control, if the dysfunctional archetypes are in control, if the dysfunctional emotions are in control, if the mind control is in control, if the matrix is in control, then we're not in control. But the second we become aware of these other things potentially being in control, we can decide whether or not we're willing to exert the discipline to make sure that they're not in control, so that we are in control. So that's where the liberation lies. That's where the freedom lies. We will never be free until we take that control back. And we say, you know what, I don't care how hard it is or how long it takes. I'm not going to live my life at the mercy of these dysfunctional emotions and fantasies and dysfunctional archetypes, because then I'm going to run in circles, mostly entropic circles, entropic demise. And that's why there's this conveyor belt, assembly line of lives that really don't serve any purpose, don't live up to anybody, nobody lives up to their potential. And at the end of the day, they wind up pulling everybody else down too, because the more we're complicit in this lie, the more we're basically doing a sort of dead man's grip on everybody else and not showing an alternative way. Well, it's an interesting question, because the first thing that has to happen is that we have to clean up our own lives. Because we're talking about decades of false fantasies and dysfunctional emotions, dysfunctional archetypes, and mind control. You could really turn your life into a rotten mess. And it's just because that's the way it all leads, because it is entropic. By nature, by design, if you suppress your truth and the truth of life, you will be suffering entropic demise. So you will be aging rapidly. You will have things going badly. You will have relationships disintegrating. It's just the nature of it. It's what will happen. It's an absolute. It is an absolute. You might have areas in your life where things go well because you're particularly talented in areas, which is great, but ultimately you're still unraveling. So it takes a lot of work to fix your own life. That's like that's a massive mission, especially if, you might have had very nice parents and maybe a few good values thrown in there, but the world is full of this nonsense. The world is is commoditizing you and objectifying you, and you're still being inundated by this barrage of, you know, sexy, cute, you know, this is it's every commercial, everything is a lie. It's this barrage of lies. So coming to terms with all of that, it's huge work. It's exhausting. You need to often lay down and have a big nap, and you need to sleep well, and then you need to sweat it out, and you need to expunge it from your tissues, and you got to go into deep silence, and you know, maybe go on a 10-day silence retreat, or spend a lot of time walking in the woods, or sitting on the beach by yourself. There's a lot of time that needs to be spent. Now, time can be our friend in the sense that the degree to which we use the time well, and we use the time to expunge the nonsense on every level, that's where time becomes our friend. Time is not our friend if we're resisting doing these necessary practices to release and expunge. But as you do this, you were asking, like, do people gravitate to you? I forget exactly how you said it, but I think what happens is, and I think what actually happens is, you develop a sense of ease. You have much greater ease in your being. So as opposed to culture, which has you acting cool, you actually feel cool. You might actually be incredibly passionate about things and come across, I mean, I know I get very intense, but I'm very much at ease. That's my personality. But it can come across often as being quite intense. I've been told that many times. But I feel at ease. I feel peace inside. I like to say it's just me and God in here, you know. And it's lovely. But I care so much. I'm wired to care. So there's fluidity, there's ease, and I think what happens is people are either drawn to that because they're like, well, you know, that feels really nice to be around, and they don't feel judged. I mean, when you recognize the whole world as, you know, being septic, and you recognize your own the decades you spent in the septic swamp, you don't have this judgmental attitude. There's kind of just a sense of relief. More than anything, it's like, and you observe, and you're like, it's really sad that people see things this way, but what can I do to help? And then there are people who really don't want to go there, who see you as a threat to, they don't want to go into the short-term cognitive dissonance that happens when you think, oh my gosh, everything I believed to be true is a lie, and I have to accept that in order to get to the other side. Whew, I don't know if I can go there. But for those people who are willing to bridge their consciousness that way and go from the septic swamp into life, and accept the fact that, you know, it's in a way, it's like you just have to be ready to drop everything you knew and be like, okay, well, that explains a lot, because I was miserable and I was depressed and I was needing to pop pills, and, you know, and now I'm not going to need to do that, or, you know, whatever the case may be. Everybody's life's a little bit different, but if for the people who can see that there's something good happening in you, they can identify it as good because their antenna at least has that much going on, then they're going to love the way they feel around you, and they're going to take the gems, probably integrate it into their own lives, and want to get out as well. Also because you can show them the way. It's like you've got so many seekers.